The popular Oklahoma chef and entrepreneur, better known as the Pioneer Woman, making headlines after her nephew and husband were involved in a collision while battling a fire on the Drummond Ranch in Osage County, Oklahoma.
Things aren't looking good for Ladd Drummond, and the man who survived a broken neck in 2 places is finally facing something even tougher than that hospital bed in Tulsa. His wife is exhausted. His children are leaving the ranch one by one. His cousin is running for governor. His family's land history is being picked apart by historians, and the cowboy himself is walking through his own front door covered in blood, trying to act like nothing is wrong. The bloody summer nobody saw coming. The summer of 2024 did something to Ladd Drummond that decades of ranching never managed to do. It cracked the man open in front of his own wife, and for the first time in their marriage, Ladd Drummond stopped pretending everything was fine on her blog. She sat down at her keyboard in late August, and what poured out of her hands was not the cheerful ranch update fans expected to read on a quiet weekend morning over coffee. She wrote about a particularly brutal day on the Drummond Ranch in Pawhuska, Oklahoma, where she watched her husband walk inside the house in a way she had never seen him walk before. Ladd was limping. He was covered in dust from head to boots like he always was. But this time, something was different about the picture in front of her, and it took her a few seconds to register what she was actually looking at, standing there in her kitchen. He was bleeding. Not a small cut on the hand from a piece of barbed wire fence. Real blood that had soaked through his shirt and dried into the dust on his arms and his neck, and his weathered face. Ree said the words came out of her mouth before her brain could stop them, and she wrote them down on the blog exactly as she said them in the moment. She told her husband she did not think they could do this anymore. She admitted in the post that she said it partly as a joke, but she also confessed that maybe a little bit of her actually meant it. She wrote that what she was really thinking inside her head was much darker than what she let herself say out loud. How much harder can a man work, she wondered. How much longer can someone do this kind of life? Are you actually okay, my love? She called the whole thing an unrelenting grind, and she said the exhaustion had finally become a little too much for both of them to keep ignoring. Fans flooded the comments with worry that day. Many of them had been following the family since the early Pioneer Woman blog days, and they could read between the lines of what Ree was carefully not saying out loud on the page. The cowboy who once drove himself to the hospital with a broken neck was now coming home bloody on a regular Tuesday afternoon, and his wife was running out of ways to laugh it off the way she used to. But what most viewers did not realize was how this single blog post would crack open a much larger storm that had been quietly building behind the ranch gates for years on end. To understand why 2024 hit the Drummond family this hard, you have to go back to a windy Wednesday afternoon in March of 2021. The crash that started everything. The date was March 10th, and the time was around 1:45 in the afternoon when the calls started coming in. A grass fire had broken out on the family ranch about 8 miles west of Pawhuska, along County Road N3660, and Ladd jumped into one fire truck while his nephew Caleb Drummond jumped into another to go fight the flames together. Caleb was just 21 years old at the time. He was the son of Ladd's brother Tim and his wife Missy, and he had been raised on this exact same land, doing this exact same kind of work since he was barely old enough to walk on his own. The wind that day was vicious. Visibility on the gravel road dropped to almost nothing as dust and smoke and prairie air all swirled together into a brown wall that nobody could see through clearly from any direction. Caleb was driving his fire truck southbound, and his uncle Ladd was driving his fire truck northbound on that same narrow gravel road in opposite directions. Neither one of them saw the other coming until it was already too late to do anything about it. The Oklahoma Highway Patrol later wrote in the official report that high winds on the gravel road decreased visibility, causing the two vehicles to hit head-on with a force nobody could have prepared for in advance. Both trucks were destroyed in the impact moments later. Caleb was ejected from his truck and thrown approximately 70 feet through the air before he hit the ground in a crumpled heap. He was not wearing a seatbelt, and his injuries were horrifying to anyone who arrived on the scene minutes after the wreck. He had a severe concussion, broken ribs, and head, arm, and leg injuries that put him in critical condition almost immediately on impact. They airlifted him straight to Ascension St. John Medical Center in Tulsa, while family members back at the ranch waited by their phones for any kind of update at all. Ladd was somehow still standing after the wreck. The man, who would later be diagnosed with a broken neck in 2 separate places, refused medical attention from the paramedics at the scene of the crash. His wife, Ree, wrote later that he did this for 3 reasons all at once. He wanted the medics to focus on Caleb. He was still stunned by what had just happened to him. And cowboys, in his words, do not like to admit when they are hurt to anyone watching nearby. So this stubborn 52-year-old man with a fractured neck climbed into another vehicle and drove himself to the hospital in Pawhuska to get checked out quietly. He called his wife on the way over and tried to casually explain what had just happened to him on the road. Ree wrote that her knees gave out the moment he started talking, and she ran out the door of the lodge in pure panic. By the time doctors finished examining him, they discovered something far worse than anyone wanted to believe was possible after his casual phone call home. The fracture that changed the marriage. The doctors transferred Ladd Drummond to Tulsa as fast as they could safely move him after the x-rays came back. What they found inside his neck made the surgeons go pale when they looked at the scans for the first time together. He had not just broken his neck once in the wreck, he had broken it in 2 completely separate places along his spine. And one of those 2 fractures, according to the medical team that examined him, was very close to being catastrophic in a way that would have ended his life or his ability to walk. A neurosurgeon, his wife, only ever identified publicly as Dr. Kalani, performed emergency surgery on the more dangerous fracture later that same evening. The surgeons stabilized the bone with a combination of metal rods and other hardware screwed directly into Ladd's spine. The second fracture had to heal on its own over several painful weeks, while he wore a heavy neck brace day and night. Ree wrote on her blog that her daughters planned to bling out the brace with rhinestones and glitter so their dad could attend Alex's upcoming wedding without ruining a single photograph. The wedding had been planned for May 1st of 2021, and nobody knew if the father of the bride would even be standing upright by then. But Ladd showed up that day. He removed the neck brace just long enough for the father-daughter dance with Alex to a Brooks and Dunn song called Cowgirls Don't Cry. Their daughter Alex put it best on her own Instagram a few weeks after the accident when she was asked how her dad was holding up through all of this. She told the camera that her father's mobility was a little limited. Then she smiled, and then she added a line that would echo for years across every Drummond fan account online. "You cannot keep a good man down," she said. Except that line started feeling less and less true as the seasons rolled forward and the years piled up at the ranch. Because what nobody outside the family understood was that the broken neck was just the beginning of a much longer chain of losses, scares, and slow-burning storms that would test the cowboy in ways even he did not see coming next. The losses that stacked up, year after year. The 2 years after the fire truck crash should have been recovery years for the Drummond family in every sense of the word. Instead, they turned into the most painful stretch of grief Ladd and Ree had ever faced together as a married couple. The losses started arriving one after another, almost like a series of waves crashing on a tired shore that had no time to rebuild between hits. In late October of 2021, Ree's older brother, Michael Smith, passed away unexpectedly at the age of 54 in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Michael, who fans knew as Cowboy Mike from his appearances on the Pioneer Woman show, had developmental disabilities, and Ree had grown up loving him fiercely as her first friend and her closest buddy in the whole world. She wrote on Facebook that it was not possible to sum up the life of someone as perfectly wonderful as her brother Michael in a single post. Ladd loved Mike deeply, too. The two of them had spent decades together at family gatherings and at the ranch, and now he was gone with almost no warning at all. Then came November 4th of 2022. Ladd's father, Charles Robert Drummond, the man everyone called Chuck or Pa around the ranch, passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 79 years old. Chuck was the patriarch who had taught Ladd everything he knew about cattle, about land, about being a steward of something bigger than yourself. Ree wrote on the blog that Ladd and his brother Tim would feel this loss most acutely of anyone in the family. They had already lost their oldest brother Todd in a car accident when he was just 18 years old back in the 70s. They had lost their mother Nan in 2018. Now, they had lost their father too. Tim and Ladd were the only two Drummond brothers left standing on the ranch, and they had to keep 433,000 acres running while burying the man who taught them how to do it. The weight of everything collapsing onto two men's shoulders began to show in ways that even loyal ranch hands started whispering about quietly to each other after long days in the field. But the losses were not the only thing wearing Ladd down by this point in the story. There was something else happening in the background that fans started picking up on through the carefully edited Food Network episodes and the increasingly rare blog posts. Something about the empire itself was starting to shift in directions even Ree could not fully control anymore. The internet lies that made everything worse. While the family was actually grieving real people in real time, the internet decided to invent fake tragedies to pile on top of the real ones for clicks. In December of 2023, fake YouTube videos began circulating widely that claimed Ree Drummond had been pronounced dead after being taken off life support in a hospital somewhere. Her family members spent days fielding calls from worried friends and concerned fans who had seen the videos and believed every word of them as fact. Then, on June 4th of 2024, a YouTube channel posted a video, and the view count exploded almost overnight in a way nobody could control. The video racked up more than 676,000 views in a matter of weeks. It claimed Ree had received some kind of devastating cancer diagnosis in early 2024, and that Ladd was stepping back from the ranch to take care of her in her final days. The story spread to dozens of other channels, blogs, and aggregator sites within 48 hours. The only problem was that absolutely none of it was true at all. Independent fact-checkers from sites like DWB Films and Amy Movie and Tuco News all traced the entire cancer rumor back to that single top rewind clickbait video and nothing else verifiable. Neither Ree nor Ladd nor any official representative from Hearst or Food Network had ever confirmed any cancer diagnosis at all in any public statement anywhere. The story was fabricated entirely from thin air by content creators chasing the algorithm and the ad revenue that comes with it. What was actually true about Ree's health, on the other hand, was far less dramatic than the lies suggested. She had lost between 50 and 55 pounds over the course of about 3 years, starting in January of 2021. She wrote about it openly on her blog in February of 2022. She made it a point to clarify in a later update that she had not used Ozempic, had not used Wegovy, had not taken any weight loss gummies, and had not used any supplements or medications of any kind whatsoever. She lost the weight through portion control, by cutting out sugar and alcohol, and by starting walks and rowing and lifting weights at home consistently. But the cancer rumor was already rolling downhill at full speed by then, and every time Ree pulled back from social media for any reason at all, fans assumed the worst was finally happening to her. The reality of what was draining the family was much more boring than cancer, and at the same time, much more dangerous to ignore quietly. The empire itself was starting to demand more than 2 aging cowboys and 1 tired wife could realistically deliver every single morning before sunrise. The empire that refuses to slow down. The Drummond Land and Cattle Company is not a small operation by any honest measurement of the word. The family owns approximately 433,000 acres of Oklahoma ranch land, which makes them the 23rd largest landowning family in the entire United States, according to the Land Report magazine. That is roughly 676 square miles of property stretched across Osage County, an area larger than the entire city of Houston, Texas. They are the largest land-owning family in Osage County, with approximately 9% of the entire county sitting under their name on the deed records. The federal government has paid the Drummond family approximately $23.9 million since 2006 in contracts to hold wild horses on their land for the Bureau of Land Management. American Wild Horse Conservation reported that figure had climbed to over $33 million across 19 separate contracts by January of 2022. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported that the family currently receives approximately $2 million per year from these arrangements at a rate of $1.30 per horse per day. At its peak, Ladd was responsible for caring for around 3,400 wild horses on Drummond land alone. Then there is the Mercantile, which everyone simply calls the Merc. Ree and Ladd opened it in 2016 inside a 1910-era brick building in downtown Pawhuska that the family had purchased 4 years earlier through Drummond Land and Cattle. The Mercantile averages roughly 6,000 visitors every single day according to Travel-OK, which is the official tourism site of the state of Oklahoma. On busy weekends, that visitor count occasionally spikes to 15,000, which is genuinely staggering when you remember that the entire town of Pawhuska only has about 2,984 full-time residents according to the most recent United States Census. The Mercantile is closed on Sundays. It includes a restaurant on the ground floor, a bakery, and a general store that sells everything from cookware to candles to Pioneer Woman branded merchandise.
Ree Drummond had no idea when she started an online blog, and now she has another venture. It's called the Mercantile, or Merc as Drummond calls it. People are traveling far and wide to visit it.
There is also a boutique hotel called the Boarding House across the street, and tours can be arranged through the Merc to visit the lodge, where the Food Network show is filmed regularly. The Pioneer Woman show itself is currently airing its 40th season, titled 16-Minute Meals New Generation, with episodes airing every Saturday morning at 10 in the morning Eastern Time. But the empire was not enough to keep Ladd standing tall in 2024. And the next chapter of the family's story would force him to face something far harder than a broken neck or a punishing mercantile schedule could ever throw at him alone. The children who are quietly scattering. The real reason things are not looking good for Ladd Drummond has very little to do with his physical body and almost everything to do with the empty chairs around his kitchen table now. The next generation that was supposed to take over the ranch is making decisions that nobody in the family ever fully prepared themselves for emotionally. Each one of his 5 children has chosen a different path, and almost none of those paths involve staying on the 433,000 acres he inherited. Alex Drummond Scott, the oldest at 28 years old, lives in Dallas, Texas, with her husband Mauricio. She made Ladd a grandfather for the very first time on December 18th of 2024, when their daughter Sophia Marie Scott was born at 2:27 in the morning. Ree posted the news with the words, "Our first baby had her first baby." On March 4th of 2026, Alex announced she was pregnant with her second child. The new baby is due to arrive on September 21st of 2026, which also happens to be Ree and Ladd's wedding anniversary, a detail that made Drummond fans collectively melt online when they did the math. Paige Drummond, the second daughter at 26 years old, came home and worked the ranch full-time during the fall of 2024 after graduating from the University of Arkansas. Ree wrote that Paige was getting banged up, scratched, bruised, and clobbered every single day on the ranch alongside her father. Then Paige married David Anderson on May 17th of 2025 at the family ranch. Her first dance with Ladd was to Garth Brooks and his song called "That Girl Is a Cowboy." By fall of 2025, Paige had moved with her new husband to Dallas. Ree told People magazine in September that Paige was torn about leaving, but she and David were having fun, finally living together as a married couple. Bryce Drummond, who is now 23 years old, made headlines on May 11th of 2024 for an entirely different reason that Ladd never wanted to explain to anyone. Police were responding to a disturbance call near the family home when they found Bryce, who failed sobriety tests at the scene that night. He was arrested on a misdemeanor charge of suspicion of actual physical control of a vehicle while under the influence. The criminal charge was dismissed approximately 11 months after the arrest, but a separate civil action revoked his driver's license, and the Oklahoma Court of Civil Appeals upheld that revocation in 2025. Bryce had transferred from North Texas to Oklahoma State University to play football. He is now listed as a running back on the OSU roster. Ladd Drummond, who is 21 years old, is studying business at the University of South Dakota, where he plays quarterback wearing jersey number 9. And Jamar, the foster son, who joined the Drummond family back in early 2019, played football at the University of Central Oklahoma. Jamar wrote a public message to Ladd on his birthday in January of 2023, calling him the smartest, strongest, and most dedicated father figure he could possibly ask for in his life. But Jamar has not been formally adopted into the Drummond family, according to the most recent reporting available. The math of the next generation is brutal for Ladd to face every single morning. Out of 5 kids he raised on the ranch, only Bryce and possibly Todd are even remotely connected to the cattle business in their 20s. The rest have moved on, married out, or chosen other paths. So Ladd and his brother Tim are running an empire of almost 500,000 acres with no clear succession plan after them, and the silence in the morning hours is starting to feel louder than the cattle. What's actually going wrong at the ranch? So when fans ask whether things are actually looking good for Ladd Drummond in late 2026, the honest answer requires sorting truth from clickbait carefully. The cancer rumors about Rhee are completely false, and they have been fact-checked and debunked by multiple independent sources over the past 18 months. There is no verified report of any new accident, no hospitalization, and no specific medical diagnosis for Ladd anywhere in any reputable outlet from late 2024 through May of 2026. In fact, as recently as January 27th of 2026, Hello Magazine reported that Ladd and Rhee saved a freezing newborn calf together during an Oklahoma snowstorm. The Drummond Ranch Instagram account documented the rescue in real time, and Ladd looked tired but very much alive, very much working, and very much himself in every frame. The cowboy is not down. He is just genuinely worn out from a life of brutal physical labor on land that does not stop demanding things from him no matter how old he gets, every single year. What is actually working against Ladd right now is much quieter than any single dramatic event the YouTube clickbait keeps inventing. He has lost his mother, his father, and his oldest brother long ago, and the family is now only 2 generations deep on a ranch that needs 3 or 4 to function smoothly. His wife is the most recognizable food personality in America, but she is also visibly exhausted, 60 pounds lighter than she was 5 years ago, and writing publicly about not knowing how much longer they can keep doing this kind of life. His cousin, Gentner Drummond, who serves as the Oklahoma Attorney General, announced his run for the Republican nomination for governor on January 13th of 2025 at the Osage County Fairgrounds in Pawhuska. The whole family is suddenly under a brighter spotlight than they have ever experienced before in their lives. Then Martin Scorsese released Killers of the Flower Moon back in October of 2023, and historians and journalists started taking a much harder look at how the Drummond family ended up owning approximately 9% of Osage County land in the first place 100 years ago. The Bloomberg podcast called In Trust documented that the original Drummond brothers served as guardians to at least 10 Osage citizens during the Reign of Terror era, and they had purchased headright fractions and acquired land connected to William K. Hale, the convicted villain of the entire Osage murder conspiracy.
William Hale, the mastermind behind the Osage murders. He found out if non-Osages marry into an Osage family and kill them, they have full access to their oil right.
Rhee and Ladd have never publicly commented on any of this history at all. Gentner Drummond, however, told the Bloomberg reporter that, of course, there were going to be hard feelings today, because the modern Osage looks around and asks why they only own 6% of their original landholdings. The whole story is now being slowly picked apart by reporters across the country, one piece at a time. So the cowboy is being squeezed from every direction at once. His body is wearing down faster than his pride wants to admit. His children are scattering across Texas and South Dakota in directions that pull them away from the ranch he inherited. His extended family is becoming a political brand under his cousin's governor run. And the very land he stewards is being re-examined by historians, journalists, and the Osage Nation itself in real time. None of this is the dramatic single tragedy that clickbait artists keep promising in their thumbnails to drive views. This is something quieter and far more honest than that kind of fake drama. This is what it actually looks like when a man who built his entire identity on never slowing down finally has to figure out how to live with a body that absolutely will not let him keep going at the same pace forever. His wife wrote it down in plain words on her blog back in August of 2024 for the entire world to read clearly. She told him she did not think they could do this anymore. He told her, in his quiet cowboy way that does not put much into words, that this is just what he does, and it is part of life on the ranch. The truth is somewhere between those two answers, and Ladd Drummond is going to have to find it before his body or his family decides for him. The ranch is not going anywhere anytime soon. The mercantile is not slowing down for anyone. The cattle still need moving every morning before dawn. But the man at the center of the whole operation is finally, quietly, and very visibly admitting that he is not the same cowboy he was at 25 years old anymore, and that admission alone is something his fans never thought they would actually live to see in their lifetime. What do you think about everything Ladd Drummond is going through right now? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know if you think the cowboy can keep up this pace, or if it is finally time for him to slow down for good.